Pathcast. I'm your host today, Eddie Webb, and with me I have Matthew Dawkins.
Good day to you.
And Dixie Cochran.
Hello.
And today we're going to be interviewing Eric Minton, who is one of the co-line developers for Exxxalted, which is Exxxalted is interesting in a lot of ways. It kind of has its own unique development cycle. The fact it's one of the only game lines that has co-line developers and has pretty regularly had co-line developers. So I'm really interested to talk with Eric about how he kind of got into the Exxxalted group and how they manage things personally.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It's been fun working with them because Eric and Robert really are a great team as far as collaboration. Like I'm in the Slack and I see them talking all the time, and they'll come to me jointly with questions. Mm-hmm. I think if they weren't such a good team, it would be really difficult to run a game line with two line developers. But they seem to work things out really well amongst themselves. So I'd be interested to see like how that kind of works for them, because I've never really asked them about their process. It just keeps working, so I just let it work, you know?
I know, I'm really looking forward to this interview. I've prepared all kinds of questions when I'm there asking Eric.
So awkward.
Matthew.
Yeah, you're not going to be there.
I'm always the bridesmaid, and I, never the bride. Will no one be interviewed by me?
So
I know there was Rich, but he
last
doesn't
time
count.
I was excluded from an interview, I got shoved into a cupboard, so I don't have a ton of sympathy for you.
It was I'll have you know that's the best cupboard we had on offer. It was cushion.
Too? Are you forgetting about her?
Oh, screw it. You know what? You go and interview Eric. You have your fun. I'll be over here writing for another games company.
We'll check with you within an hour, Matthew.
Okay.
And I'm here with Dixie.
Hello.
And we are here chatting with Eric Minton, who is one of the line developers for Exxxalted. Hello, Eric.
Hi.
And if I remember correctly, you've been working on Exxxalted for 5 years now, is that right?
Oh, I've been working on Exxxalted since 2007, I think.
Oh, wow. Much longer than I thought. Okay.
Yeah, I started out on the tail end of 2nd edition with the Manual of Exalted Power Infernals. And
I don't think I even realized you had been on there for that long. And I'm technically your boss.
I'm a man of many mysteries.
So how did you kind of get started? Because Exxxalted's your first Onyx Pass/White Wolf property, right, that you worked on?
First and only.
Okay, there you go. So how did you get involved in the process? I'm curious.
How did I get involved with
freelancing?
Freelancing. That goes back farther.
Okay, yeah.
I think this was in 2004. I was browsing around online and I encountered an advertisement on, I think it was RPGNet, for something, let's see, Alan Varney, who has been in role-playing games since forever and a day, was looking for people for an online game about the role-playing game Paranoia, which has also been around forever. I was at one of the demos in 1987, I think, ages and ages ago. And he was just like putting out an open call for people to just be in this online text game in which they would be playing high-ranking Paranoia characters and sort of building a little mini world. And it turned out that it was actually a stealth recruitment tool that he was using to find good writers and use them for rebooting the Paranoia line under Mongoose Publishing. And so I wound up working on the entire Mongoose line until it got taken back in-house and they got rid of all the freelancers.
Oh, wow.
And I decided, more or less at random, to get in touch with Lydia Lorentzen, who I had been working on some Exxxalted fan projects with several years earlier, because I found out that she had been working for Exxxalted, and she told me that John Chambers was looking for someone who was working on a book that was more or less about the sorts of things that people really liked about my fan work. So I just sent him an email and sent him a link to what I've been doing. And he brought me on because someone had dropped off the project halfway through and he really needed someone. And then he just kept giving me work and I kept working.
And that was the Infernals book?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that was, because I was in-house at White Wolf at that time. And I remember that was a tumultuous development period. That book had some troubles, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I'm missed out on a lot of that because I came in halfway through the development cycle. Everyone else was in the middle of first drafts before I even knew that the book was a thing.
Oh, that's fair enough. Yeah, because I know he pitched it internally, and we were talking about it, and then he was like, "Sure, we got it sorted out," and then because it was a new at the time, it was a new version of it, the new splat, if you will. And so he was like, "Yeah, this is great. It's a cool idea." And then there was a lot of getting people on board with the concepts we had agreed to, because some of the writers were kind of going off in different directions. And then, yeah, like you said, there was a kind of a drop in writers. So it's if I remember correctly, you said I remember your stuff being pretty good. Now we're talking about it, I do remember you working on that, because I remember John saying like, finally someone kind of gets it and seems to nail it down pretty well. But it sounds like your fan work probably really helped with that.
Oh yeah, it really did. I've started on Exxalted when it first came out. I actually bought the limited edition in the store because I didn't want to wait a month for the regular edition to come into print. And
Gotta have it now.
I had to have it then, and I did. And I started running a game later that year, and then I found the fan community probably the year after that, and I spent 2-3 years just churning out all sorts of random stuff. And there was a great community of people, a lot of whom ended up doing game design, often indie stuff, going off in different directions from it. It was a really good experience.
I feel like a lot of the people who were fans of the original and who were on the team of the original actually still work on it too. Like we've pulled people from the fan community and stuff to work on the books, and I mean that's almost kind of the idea behind things like even like Storyteller's Vault and Canis Minor too, is that we see people doing this work because they love it, and then sometimes we're like, hey, you're really good actually, you should write on the actual book.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting new people from the fan community, and it's great. I try not to like specifically go out and look for people to pull in, because I don't want to vet someone's work in advance, if that makes sense.
Right.
Like, if I know someone personally, I will always send their submissions to Vance to look at, and vice versa. So there's no issues of personal preference coming into it.
I'd say it's one thing I wanted to kind of dig into a little bit is I noticed that you guys have been doing an open call trying to get more writers in. And that's relatively recent, because for a while there was very much a stable that you guys had. It was like, there's a handful of writers, and it was a lot of them were working on the same books. Is that true, or is that just my misperception?
No, we had... Well, when the old developers were working, they had brought in a group of writers, and then when Vance and I took over, everything was really in a bit of a rush and a bit of a tumult, because, I mean, for better or worse, we had never developed before.
Right.
So we were working from old outlines that other people were already writing to, and we didn't really want to rock the boat. And at this point, we still do have a stable of writers, and a lot of them are very, very talented and skilled people. But some of them are moving on up to other things, bigger and better things. They're becoming developers in other lines. They're writing for other lines. And we can't monopolize their talents.
Yeah.
So we're trying to bring in new blood. And hopefully we're going to keep on doing that. And hopefully more of these new writers will also find new places to work.
We had a conversation a while back in the Exxalted Slack, the one for actual like development, not the fun one everybody talks about Exxalted. We had a conversation a while back where like Eric was throwing names at me for people that could possibly dev future Exxalted products, and every single person I was like, nah, they have too much going on. No, I just tapped them to dev something else. Like, no, this is because I mean it was like, oh, how about Megan Fitzgerald? And I'm like, she used to dev on like 12 things. And then I was like, how about Vera Vartanian? And I was like, I just tapped her to dev a whole line. Like,
Steffi Devon, no, tapped her too. Sorry.
Yeah, like they're all super devs. And that's the other reason that we're trying to bring more people too, is because currently with Exxalted, we're trying very hard to do more than one project at one time. It's one of the pluses of having 2 line developers and like a project manager, which is me, is that we have the capacity now to kind of do 2 or 3 books at one time. But we didn't have the writers for that, was the main problem. Like, we had enough writers to do 1 big book at one time, But then if you were like, okay, let's also do this other book at the same time, it was like, well, we have 3 people left that
Right.
that aren't already writing 30K for a different Exalted book. So,
Well, yeah, and I mean, that's one thing I find really kind of interesting about Exalted specifically is that it is a very specialized skill set, it seems, inside of Onyx Path. And a lot of the other Onyx Path properties, if you've written for World of Darkness, you could probably pick up Chronicles of Darkness and the nuances of it pretty well, and vice versa. Or you can kind of jump onto Scion and again get most of what's happening there. But it does seem like Exalted requires a very specific level of knowledge and a very different distinct style of writing, which means it can be sometimes harder to get people into that stable, as it were.
Yeah, it's 2 things. One of which is that most of the Onyx Path properties are set in basically a variation of the modern world. And even if you don't know all the intricacies of that particular supernatural branch of the setting, you still have the modern world to work from.
Right, I know where Moscow is. I know what a car is.
yeah.
Yes.
You do? You know what a car is?
I know what cars are. I'm smart.
That's the title of this episode. I know what cars are.
I know what cars are.
And the other half of it is that Exalted has been around for nearly 20 years now, and it's built up an enormous amount of lore, some of which we are maintaining and some of which are changing and a few bits we're throwing out. And that requires just a whole bunch of information to keep track of. I guess that's the flip side of the same issue. But it's more along the lines of differentiating it from things like Pugmire and Cavaliers of Mars, which are also not set in the modern world, but they're relatively new games, and the writers can break new ground, I think, more easily.
Right. I know I had a similar experience when I worked on, when I worked at both the Futurama game and the Walking Dead game, is because those are both properties with, like I say, 15, 20 years of things. I mean, Walking Dead was easier because, again, it was like our world, but with zombies and slightly shittier. But Futurama is a completely new concept. I mean, it's sci-fi, and you have to not only keep track of all the lore details, but also some of the running gags and how those play out. So yeah, I can certainly see why it's perhaps intimidating for a new writer who isn't already an Exalted fan to kind of go, I have to pick up all of this lore.
Well, so I will admit, like I've said before, when I got brought onto this line, during the Dragon Blooded Kickstarter, I actually wrote a short update about this where I was like, I don't really know much about Exalted, to be perfectly honest. Like, I know what a few people have told me. I know what I've gleaned from the Slack. At that point, I had only read one Exalted book, which was The Realm, because I edited it. And I think after I edited it, the comment I got back from Rose, from one of y'all, I don't know who it was like, she's a really good technical editor, but she clearly does not know anything about creation. Because I'm sure I had pointed out things and been like, really? What's up with this? This doesn't make any sense. And if I had 15, 20 years of Exalted lore in my brain, I would have been like, oh, that old thing, that makes perfect sense. But instead I was going like, this term I don't understand what's happening.
Right.
Because it's so expansive. Like I've worked on Legend of the Five Rings as well, and that's the closest thing to Exalted I've worked on, and Exalted is that times a million plus crazy fantasy tropes plus anime. It's so big.
Yeah, with L5R, it's less of the range of what could happen, but also you're inheriting massive amounts of political intrigue, and it's like, over the course of these 10 years, these 5 million political things happened and changed. So it's a different kind of lore density. Right.
So what is it about Exalted that drew you to it, Eric? Like, what in the very beginning made you go like, wow, I have to play this. I, love this game so much.
Wow, what did younger me think of the game?
Yeah, exactly. What was the other thinking about this game, almost 2 decades ago?
I want to play a game where I roll 75 dice all at once.
I'm pretty sure that wasn't it. I mean, that's okay, but I don't think that was it. No. I mean, a lot of it was just the inspirations. I mean, it drew on, sword and sorcery and a lot of obscure fantasy that I had been reading and still read to this day. and it was just a delicious jumble of stuff. There's just so much jammed in, so much flavor, and so much, and it's not rehashed Tolkien pastiche.
Right.
Yeah, no, it is very, very different from any of the other big fantasy games out there. Not going to call anybody out specifically.
There are a lot of really cool games, and some of whom have that sort of depth. I mean, Glorantha from RuneQuest, for example, or
Petal of the Empire Throne.
That's exactly what I was going to name.
Mm-hmm.
Those
Empire of the Petal Throne,
yeah, those two are the examples that leap out for me the most. But there are other settings that have that sort of complexity, but not a lot.
Well, actually, that brings to kind of an interesting point. It is a we talked a lot about how it's a complex, it's a dense world, and you were a writer on third edition, and then of course now you're the line developer on third edition. So, I mean, how has that transition been? How do you take such a massive game and try to reinvent it into a new edition, and what kinds of decisions end up making going forward too?
Oof. Well, for starters, it's a very collaborative process. Vance and I talk on Slack a lot. We also talk a lot with Megan, who is developer number 3 for the team, and a few other people like
Megan's
Lee
amazing.
and Neil Raymond Price and Dixie.
I'm here. I very rarely
Yay.
contribute anything to the actual lore.
No, but it's not just about lore. It's about what's good for the game as a game,
Right.
which is ultimately what the lore is for. We try not to succumb to the temptation to get too involved in the story as story. It's all about what makes for something that is a cool play experience at the table, which isn't always the same thing as a cool read.
Right.
Okay.
Totally.
And yeah, so we try and bring to bear, our collective decades of experience of actually running and playing role-playing games.
So you try to move away from things like a World Darkness style meta plot and more towards here's a bunch of cool story hooks.
Yeah, we definitely have no interest in doing meta plot. The current day is the current day. We actually do plan to occasionally have scenarios that move their own independent timeline forward, but that's not a meta plot thing. They're mutually exclusive. It's just if you run this adventure about the realm civil war in the West, these are things that may happen or may not happen, and these are directions you may take it over the next several years of game time, but that doesn't say anything about the actual books that we're putting out about the moment in time where we have the setting taking place.
Right.
Yeah, one of the things that's actually been really helpful for me to understand the game a lot better is the fact that in our development Slack, there is a separate channel where Neil tells us what's going on in his War in the West game. So I get to kind of see like how all these different parts that I see going into the books work together, and how
Right.
various systems work, and some of the things that his players choose to do with it and stuff. And that's been a really, really cool experience, is kind of getting to see almost like a recap of an ongoing game. And I think some of the material even that he's put in his game is getting put into a future book. Is that right, Eric?
That's the plan. There is, as per the Kickstarter stretch goals from the Dragonblood Kickstarter, there's going to be a section covering the War in the West in the Kickstarter expansion / companion volume Heirs to the Shogunate. And Neil's writing that, and he's going to be basing a lot of the material on his home game because he played it out. He has some idea of how this could go, and that's going to inform his writing.
Yeah.
Nice.
Which is really cool. Like, he's essentially already done all the research for it. So now he just has to, sit down and write it into story hooks instead of the plot he's been giving his players.
It's kind of an almost early playtesting.
Yeah, almost. Yeah, he's pretty much been play testing the scenario for a while now, from what I understand. So that's super, super nifty. Speaking of Dragon Ball Kickstarter, how was that for you? How was that process?
I was going to mention that, yeah, because the third edition Exalted Kickstarter was both wildly successful and somewhat controversial, shall we say?
Yeah, let's
Fair
leave
enough.
it at that.
So how was the Dragon Blood Kickstarter? How did that go? Were you nervous about it? Were you happy with the results?
I was very happy with the results. It was beyond my highest expectations. I did not think we'd get so much support, and I'm really excited and grateful that so many people still care so much about this line that I care enough about to, sink my life into right now. And we're putting a lot of effort right now into prepping the book. We've finished the outline. We're just getting ready to send it out to writers while people are still working on Lunars.
Yeah, this is for Heirs to the Shogunate. Obviously, Dragon Blooded got written.
Oh, sorry, I did not mean to confuse anyone. Dragon Blooded is, from our perspective, pretty much out the door. It's going to come back to us after layout for, final cleaning up. But we're done writing that. We're done editing that. We're done developing that.
And that was one of the first books that you were one of the line developers over, right?
Second book. The first one was Arms of the Chosen.
Right. Well, and so Dragon Blooded is what we internally call a fat splat. It's a splat book. It's a book that one type of character type we dig into deeply, and I think it's fair to say Dragon Blood's probably one of the more iconic splat books up there with Lunars. So what was it like to kind of update them to third edition? What kinds of changes did you make? What kinds of things did you keep? What was the design process like on that?
Wow. It was complex and a little grueling. We inherited a half-finished project because a couple of years ago, the writers were signed, first drafts were turned in, things happened, and when Vance and I took over the developer spot, the book was still in first drafts.
Right.
And some of the writers withdrew, so we were missing some drafts. Mm-hmm. Which meant we had to basically go back to the drawing board, look at all the material. And we also had to go over everything from scratch anyway. We had to re-redline everything because, the previous developers could have done an amazing job, but it was our responsibility to treat it as if this was coming in for the first time.
Right. It's not a quality issue. It's a matter of you're going to have a distinct vision from whoever developed the book previously, and so you have to make sure that division is consistent
Exactly.
throughout. That makes sense.
Yeah, and so we were doing a lot of things on the fly, and all in all, I think it came out amazingly well. I'm still kind of astonished, considering how inexperienced Vance and I were. I think we did a great job. The writers, of course, did a wonderful job. That sort of goes without saying. We have a very, very strong team.
And what have you learned as developers? Because like you say, you were kind of pushed into the end of the Shark Tank, and it's like, cool, you're developers now, have fun. So what have you learned over the past, from Dragon Kickstarter to Dragon Blooded manuscript to now? What have you learned as developers?
I've learned it's actually kind of fun.
That's good.
It's really exciting and engrossing in a way that it scratches an itch that writing doesn't, but it's also really complicated, and there's a million things you have to keep track of, both in terms of writing and editing and administrative work, and it's. I'm still getting a handle on it, but I think we did really good work on Dragon Blooded and the Realm. I hope we can do at least as well on Lunars, and we're just going to keep learning going forward and trying to do the best we can.
Yeah, I will definitely say, based on both internal conversations in Onyx Path and also what little bit I've picked up from the community, you're absolutely right. People have been very happy from what I've seen with Dragon Blooded.
Yes.
The Kickstarter did do a lot better than I think any of us really anticipated. Mm-hmm. I know from my end, I was nervous about it because not only from what happened previously, but also the fact that this is a seminal book. Really, third edition is one thing, but getting Dragon Blooded and to a certain degree the Lunars right is a big part of making sure that edition of Exalted does well, because those are again very important books. And so it does seem like you guys did it well, and that's in spite of the conditions, but also, you got, because of your depth of knowledge of the property, it sounds like that probably helped you instinctively figure out some of the calls you had to make on that book.
It helped. We, again, did a whole lot of talking and hashing things out as a group to figure out where to go and how to go forward. I think it actually also helped the book in certain ways that it had gone through such a difficult development process, because it had additional fingerprints on it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
The previous developers had injected their own vision, and then we injected ours, but that means that there's additional conceptual grist here. So
right. I mean, but two different groups of people ultimately are thinking about these things, which means you have two different approaches, and it ends up inadvertently bringing a level of nuance and thought to something.
yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, how's working with a co-dev when it comes to that kind of stuff? Since there's 2 line developers on Exxalted, I mean, I've seen during even in Slack conversations where occasionally, you two will take it to the team and be like, hey, we're, not agreeing on this thing. So how is it when you're collaborating with somebody else on the overall vision of the line? I know that you and Robert Vance usually line up pretty well, but like when you don't, how do you address that?
Yeah, well, I mean, for starters, neither of us has ever developed solo, so we don't really have much of a basis of comparison.
Fair enough.
True. Okay.
But we actually solidly disagree pretty rarely. Usually we just sort of talk it out and we make our arguments, and I'll say, you have a point there, or he'll say, no, you have a point there, and we'll work it out. It's pretty rare that we have an intractable issue, and when we do, we bring in outside opinions, and that usually helps settle things one way.
Oh yeah, I mean the disagreements I'm talking about have been so minor. It's been things like, hey, title of this thing, or should this go in this direction, or whatever. We have a lot of talk about titles in the Exalted Slack. Like we'll just be throwing titles at the wall.
Naming is hard.
To be fair,
it is one of the hardest things.
I mean, it's hard. It's inherently hard. I mean, I always had trouble with titles, but also Exalted titles have this weird thing of they need to be a certain kind of level of ornate, but also can't be egregiously long.
Right. And we've also made the choice to step away from using book-related titles because that was the 2nd edition thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
so you don't have the thing of Many Directions, Volume 12.
Well, yeah, it's not scroll of this or whatever of that. Yeah. So when it came to we had the conversation a little bit when it came to Across the 8 Directions, because for a while it was like 8 Directions Atlas, I think was one of the working titles we talked about.
That was the working title, which I loved, and you made me lose it, and I was so sad.
I didn't make you lose it. It was the rest of the team going, like, we don't name things after books anymore. And I was like, I didn't know that. I don't know anything about Exxalted. Shut up.
But also, it's also your fault now. Retroactively, it's your fault.
So now it's called Across the 8 Directions, which is still a good title, and it abbreviates really well to AAD. That's what we usually call it.
It's a very good title. It just took me a while to change gears.
Well, the Exigence title, which we haven't talked about much yet, but we did, it is on the thing. We are working on Exigence. That one got a whole lot of conversation.
Multiple conversations.
Yeah, many conversations. I think it's really, really interesting how titles work like that. And also how even the fans, when we announced what the subtitle for Lunars was, they were all super excited just to know that piece of information. It's kind of fun, doling out little bits of information, even when it's just things like the subtitle of a book and people are grasping at it.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of making fans happy, what can you guys talk about in regards to Lunars and Exigence? Because I know those are two, again, people are looking forward to those books.
Gosh, where to start? Where to end? I don't know.
Well, I mean, okay, let me kind of lead you in then. So let's start with just Lunars specifically. What pieces of Lunars do you think are iconic and need to be kept in a 3rd edition book, and which pieces did you feel like you needed to change and update?
Lunars have always been troublesome development-wise because when the game first started out, I mean, Exalted 1st edition also had a troubled development cycle. A lot of things changed behind the scenes before it was ever published. Dragonblood was originally supposed to be the default Exalt type.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the setting was supposed to be 10 times smaller. They expanded the map. I mean, not in terms of pushed out the edges. I mean, they literally stretched it out. Everything is 10 times farther apart than it used to be.
Oh, wow.
Weird.
Which explains a lot of weirdness in terms of how places that are thousands of miles apart are talking to each other and have diplomatic relations because they were supposed to be a lot closer.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But it also means that we have things like the Lunars were originally not supposed to be a playable splat. They were only supposed to be non-player characters, insane god monsters from beyond the edge of the world. There were no rules for them, and when it was decided early in second edition to switch it over and make them playable, the setting had already gelled around a history and a present day in which they didn't really have a place and didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's caused problems ever since. There's also later been the problem that because they were a little incoherent at first, writers and developers have tried various things over the years to try and like make them interesting and give them a direction, dimension, character, and it's wound up with Lunars that didn't really have any clear core concept other than, hey, we're shapeshifters.
Okay.
And so in third edition, we're trying to narrow it back down so they have a core conceit. This is something that Vance is working very hard on. Dragonblood was kind of more my baby than his, and Lunars is definitely more his baby than mine.
Yeah, hadn't he written like 30K of lunar terms before we even started writing the book?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, like when I saw the word counts, I was like, maybe Vance shouldn't be writing 50,000 words. Like, that's a huge word count for one person. And then,
Too late.
And then they were like, well, he already wrote 30,000 of them. And I was like, oh, that's fine then.
Yeah, that's something else that seems to be, I don't want to say unique, but certainly rare and particular to the Exalted writer community is the fact that you guys will just write stuff for fun, for books that aren't even announced yet or even already being considered, which is I love, but it also just baffles me to a certain extent. It's like, yeah, I wrote 30K because why not?
It's okay. It's just that we're insane.
To be fair, you thought being a dev was cool, so obviously you're a little bit correct.
Well, we are trying to work on pitches for the next 3 years, and
yeah, we had a meeting a while back. This'll please Exalted fans. Little tidbit. I had a meeting with Eric and Vance a little while ago where we hashed out what the next probably 15 or so Exalted books are going to be. So provided that people keep wanting to purchase them, we have a plan to keep making them. Because, like, I kept seeing all these books getting tossed around in the Slack. Like, oh, that'll go in this book, that'll go in that book. And I finally sat down and was like, all right, guys, you're going to tell me what all these books are, what they're about, what holes they fill, etc. I can't talk about any of them in detail right now because they've not, been through the approvals process. But we do have quite a bit planned out. And we do have Lunars, Things at the Gate, Heirs to the Shogunate, Exigence Out of the Ashes, Across the Eight Directions, which is, just nothing but setting. Those are all in the works on some level. So, Exalted fans, be pleased.
Well, and something actually I was curious about, both of you touched on this, and it's actually maybe slightly more of a Dixie question. You guys have a dedicated Slack, which is something that's becoming more increasingly common in Onyx Path, but still relatively a new tool. And the fact that you guys collaborate a lot on things like pitches and whatnot. So, I mean, I'm curious how we had an episode about process, about how a book becomes a bill, or however that goes. How a book becomes a law.
Sitting here on Capitol Hill, what?
But because you mentioned you're so collaborative and you have so many people who are both deep subject matter experts and also passionate about the product, how do you guys start from, I want to do a thing, or perhaps I've already done 30K of a thing, to we've now consolidated these together to start the pitch process?
Or
is there a method, or is it just kind of just a scrum where you all dive in and eventually a product comes out?
I will say, as in most Slacks, there are, channels in ours. So there's a general channel that has like 30 or 40 people in it, something like that. But then there is a much smaller developer channel that is closed, and there's only 7 people in it.
Only 7?
Well, I mean, it's what, me, Eric, Vance, Neil, Megan, Lee Shepard, and someone I'm forgetting. I don't know. I can look at the member list, but yeah. So there's a much, much smaller one. And Manda Collis, who almost never talks in there. But yeah, so there's a really, really small one, and that tends to be where the pitches and outlines and stuff get sent out for review. Half the time, we don't have too many comments on them. I usually save mine till after everybody else has kind of said something. But what seems to happen is that we talk about all the kind of meaty bones stuff in there. When it's like, okay, here's the skeletal outline for this, or here's what we're thinking for this. And we don't really throw it to general too often unless something needs 30 opinions, you know? But from what I can tell, Eric and Vance tend to work up stuff together first and then show it to us.
So it sounds like there's a stage process where it's you two guys start thinking about ideas, then you take it to the slightly larger developer-centric pool of thought and kick it around there, and then it needs to be sent out to the whole stable.
Pretty much. We generally only solicit broad opinions for things that might be fraught or controversial, or just to get opinions about how excited people are about things. We have so many potential book ideas that we're not really looking to have writers pitch things. That might change down the line, I don't know, especially if we get to a point where we have a network of sub-developers and we can start putting out multiple books a year beyond what we're doing now, but I don't know how things are going to go down the line.
Right. Because that's something that we've kind of talked about, is bringing on more developers, possibly even like bringing on co-developers for a couple of the side projects, and then letting them work with either Eric or Vance as they kind of learn the development process. Just because, as I said, so many of our other developers have kind of like aged out almost. In that they have
like Neil knows a whole lot. Oh, we gave him all of Scion.
Yeah, like Megan's really great. Oh, she dubs like 2 or 3 lines for us and also lines for other companies. So yeah.
But I'll be honest, part of the reason why I'm digging into this is because I see potential process overlap with something like Trinity, because Trinity is a similar situation. It doesn't have quite the depth of lore, in the sense that it doesn't have nearly as many books produced as Exalted's previous editions have, but you have the same concept of you have multiple slices, each of which has their own distinct lore, and it all interconnects. So the stuff that happens in Aberrant impacts Aeon and has backwards references to adventure. And you have groups with their own different perspectives. You have one person, Ian, who's kind of overseeing all of the lore and the direction. And so I think there's a potential long-term benefit of emulating what seems to be working really well with you guys with Exxalted. So I'm hearing stuff like you guys are very collaborative and working together and kicking around ideas and trusting each other's instincts, but you're starting small and then building out from there. Gives me stuff to think about as I continue to work with Ian and the Trinity team as they try to find their feet. Because I think there's a lot of similar challenges that both of you are trying to address in slightly different ways.
Well, yeah, it's nice to have a place where you can go and be like, I mean, I think one conversation we had a while back regarding Lunars was like, so what's up with the Silver Pact? And we had a whole conversation about guerrilla warfare and like real world examples and cults and all kinds of crazy stuff. I was just throwing history at them because they asked me to do that.
It was very helpful. I hit the library afterwards. I have a giant pile of books.
But what happened out of that was that we took a little bit of what I said and a little bit of what Lee said and a little bit of what, you said, and you kind of figured out the direction for the Silver Pact from that. So, yeah.
I have to first. I'll agree that the whole Aeon continuum thing is probably closer to Exalted than anything else that Onyx Path does.
Right, because the World of Darkness is different. It's got a different level of depth of lore. It's not as interconnected,
And pulling away from the interconnected lore to focus on elements of the real world and incorporating that into the supernatural is a strength. Right. So that's definitely something that you can assign to someone who isn't really knowledgeable about the lore, and they can still contribute something very valuable.
Right, but as Trinity moves further to the different poles of the continuum, it gets further into ancient history or further into far future, it does start to emulate Exalted in the sense of we have to spend more time explaining the background as opposed to just like Aberrant, which is, okay, it's our world 10 years from now. There's now glowing computer screens floating in the air, and you have superpowers go. I mean, with Aeon, it's like, okay, here's how the different planets look and all the different alien races and so on and so forth. So, I feel like there's more of that. We have to have a depth of detail that resonates and sounds strong, and people who are invested in that lore, but also are willing to collaborate that way. If, say, Steve on Aberrant says, I have a cool idea, being able to we can all collaborate and say, okay, how does that impact Aeon? How does that impact eventually if we do Adventure, if we do other books that we haven't announced yet? How does all that, and the knock-on effect, and having Ian as a clearinghouse is fantastic, and is a huge help. But you mentioned going into books in parallel, and that's something I'm trying to think of. Is like we're going to start hitting that point soon, where we're going to have Aeon books and Aberrant books and other books all happening kind of simultaneously, and having sure that people are talking and communicating is something that's really, really important. So, I mean, what kinds of stuff do you have? Any kind of practices in terms of like how you manage your Slack, or is it just kind of you trust people to not be jerks?
It really is a personality thing in that respect, in that we can trust each other not to be jerks. Especially Vance and I in particular, and by and large, most of the people involved are receptive sort of people. We don't have much in the way of people trying hard to push their ideas over anyone else's. Mm-hmm. And that really simplifies things immensely. If we had a different mix of personalities, things would function differently, and I'm not sure this would work.
Yeah, they also have... I've made it fairly clear to everybody in the Slack that I'm available to mediate, and I'm available in general. So if somebody has a question or has a concern and wants to come to me directly, like, you can direct message on Slack, so they can do that. So if somebody, if there's a conversation happening in the general chat room or whatever that somebody gets uncomfortable with, they're more than welcome to message me. If something gets a little too personal or a little too, whatever. Like, they're totally welcome to come to me, and then I can go to the person and be like, hey, like, I'm like kind of like, the HR person on the Slack if I have to be. Granted, that hasn't really come up. Like, there was one conversation one time where somebody was kind of like, someone actually came to me and said, hey, are we being out of line? And I was like, it's not bothering me. And if anybody says anything, like, I'll let them know, Well, it got vaguely salacious for a minute.
That's true. I mean, especially with a group like us, not safe for work. It's really muddy at times.
Well, yeah. I mean, because it's a very mixed gender and mixed person group in general. Like, we've got all kinds of different folks in there. So, sometimes what somebody might consider okay is not okay for somebody else. And I was like, well, I don't have a problem with it, but if somebody does, I'll say something.
And also, I mean, we generally address a lot of adult and controversial topics, so sometimes you have to kind of shoot from the hip a little bit during internal discussions to be able to kind of dig down into what makes those topics interesting and compelling and inclusive.
And I mean, I think that inclusivity is something that we're really striving for with Exxalted now, personally. I don't know if you can speak to that at all, Eric, but I've seen quite a lot of conversations about that in the Slack and in manuscripts in general. What do you think about that?
That's been a significant subject for me, because, when I started getting involved in game development 15 years ago now, I guess. I mean, I'm gay. I'm not exactly making a secret of it. And I didn't have a lot of support at the time. It's not that anyone was like, no, stay in the closet. But they're just straight, white, cis, male, everything was just sort of a default.
Right.
Yeah.
So
which is like an issue in fantasy in general, so.
Yeah. And, I would make sure that, for instance, that, like, there would be characters of different ethnicities in the art when there were all, white dudes before, and it was a big deal. And I felt really cool about it. And now suddenly I'm the old fuddy-duddy, and everyone is like trying to do all sorts of inclusive stuff. And I'm like, wait, am I holding everyone back now? Is that what's happened? And so I'm
I will say that inclusivity conversations come up in sometimes the weirdest contexts. One of the Exalted projects I got to develop on. Actually, I developed a handful of the second edition projects at White Wolf.
Are you going to talk about the terrifying book?
I am going to talk about that book. I love this story. We worked on the April Fool's joke of Triple Exalted, the Swallowed Darkness. And so it was like one of the first quote unquote usable products we did as an April Fool's joke at the time. And so we had some kind of, it was very, we're not sure how to put this together. And so I had some ideas. We talked about it. It was something we kind of kicked around. And I said, I want to make sure that it was plausibly usable.
For those of you listening that don't know, Scroll of Swallowed Darkness is a completely pornographic version of Exalted, like a source book, where it has all kinds of sex charms and the illustrations are incredibly explicit. I ran across it while looking through our Exalted archive at one point, and it was just like, what the shit is this?
Right. The first thing I was going to say, which is not related to it, but is also funny, is that Drive-Thru RPG had to change their policies on how adult materials are shown on the site because it was so popular. It was hitting the #1 list all the time. So they had to change their policy to make sure that adult products didn't show up on the same list. So that was my fault. But the larger thing, again, the Inclusivity project is we got Meliorand to do the art, and she was like, oh, God, yes, I definitely want to do this. Mm-hmm. A little too enthusiastically. I was like, okay, sure, no problem. But Brian Glass was the art director at the time. And we were actually physically in offices in White Wolf at this point. So I was in my office, and Brian kind of came in, and it was just like, we need to have a talk about Triple Exalted. I'm like, oh, what's wrong? Did we go too far? Is there someone have an issue? I'm saying, no. It's just I'm getting the art in, and I've noticed a problem. There's a lot of female nudity, but there's not an equivalent amount of male nudity I'm seeing in the sketches. And I'm like, okay, so what we do is like, well, I think we need to cock this up a bit, which is the exact words. And so
there's a lot of that in there.
Yeah, and so we had a business talk. I got paid a salary to discuss how much penis needs to go into this book.
This conversation got real interesting.
Yeah. So but it's funny because like it's a funny story. I genuinely enjoy it, but at the same time, the core of it is valid because this was 10 years ago, and still on some level, this needs to appeal to a wider audience. It needs to appeal to people who would appreciate male nudity and would find that to be able to laugh at it in the same way as people who are attracted to women. And so it was an inclusive issue, even though it was a humorous one and for a humorous book, but it was still a very valid point. It was a good instinct, and Brian was right to kind of bring that to my attention. So, because I was blind to that point, I hadn't thought about that, being heterosexual myself. So I mean, it's weird, but sometimes it's the weird conversations are the best ones to have to make sure a book or a project is as inclusive as possible.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we're like all of our signature characters and stuff in some of the newer projects that we're putting out for Exalted are definitely try to like a wide range of, ethnicities and body types and genders and all of that. Wide range of sexualities that we try to, throw throughout all the books as we talk about various factions and things.
People should be able to see themselves portrayed not just in the setting, but front and center as protagonists.
Exactly. You're not an afterthought.
Is that what went into your cover decisions for Lunars? Because I know who we're putting on the cover. We can talk about that if we want.
We could talk about that.
Well, I mean, if you want to, you don't have to. I'm not going to force you into it. I just know that we had a long conversation about who would be the most interesting signature character to put on the cover.
I thought that was for Dragonblooded.
That was for Dragonblooded. I don't know why I said Lunars, because my brain's off and I'm very tired.
I was just confused there for a moment.
Yeah, and
talk about that.
I'm sorry.
We are a professional podcast. We plan this stuff out.
I get the names of books messed up all the time. I can't remember which mage line I work on. It's a whole thing. It's full disclosure, it's 9 o'clock at night. I've been working all day.
And also, for a company that has books named Dark Eras and Dark Ages, not at all confusing.
Yeah, I used to get Geist and Wraith mixed up. Like, I have all kinds of problems. Anyway, we're excited on the cover for Dragon Blooded. I'm sorry, anybody that I offended by calling Dragon Blooded's Lunars.
No, I just thought we'd had a conversation I'd forgotten about somehow.
Also would not be out of their own possibility. They're definitely...
Okay, let's go back through Slack and double check.
Yeah, sorry. So sorry to accidentally curveball you there, Eric. Anyway, no, we're not anywhere near talking about what's going to go on the cover for Lunars. We have no freaking clue right now. But yeah, so we had a conversation on which of the signature characters to put on the cover for Dragon Blooded for the non-deluxe version. And we settled on...
we are putting Kingfisher Swift on the cover.
And she looks like...
She looks badass.
She does.
That's the correct answer.
No, she is. It's cool because she's a darker skinned woman with pink hair, and I'm very excited about that because I feel like that's not something that I've seen a whole lot on covers of role playing game books.
No, totally. That's actually very cool.
Yeah. So we're playing around with that, and we're trying to make sure the illustrations are all over the place. Eric and Vance are actually super hands-on with the illustration process too, which I think is really cool. Because the art for Exxalted is definitely pretty iconic. And if there's one thing that I see, it's that whenever we get sketches in, like, we have really good conversations about them. Where they're saying, like, hey, this needs to look more, Roman, this needs to look more like this. Hey, can we change this little tiny detail if it doesn't line up with, the book text?
Right.
Which I think is really cool.
I'm sure that Mike wants to kill us both.
Yeah, I was saying, it's really cool. I'm sure my Cheney will murder you in your sleep, but it's very cool.
I think it's important, though, because if you don't specify a whole bunch of stuff about characters, that's how you end up with a book full of nothing but white dudes with big swords,
Well, no, actually, and that's definitely an important. I know I just went through the art note process with Dystopia Rising, and so I had to put in there. It's like, do not assume if a skin color and a gender is unspecified, do not default to white dude. It's like I tried to be as inclusive in the art notes as possible, but I spelled the writers or the artists, this is not the default. Try to be as inclusive as possible, but it's still going to happen. I mean, because the reality is that artists, just like all of us, they're contractors, and white male artists will, not all the time, but a lot of them will default to white male subjects if not given direction, and more diverse artists will assume the client wants white men as a default. So I mean, that's where I get a lot of that in art, unless you specifically say, no, we do want different direction. And that's changing. I think it's been changing a lot in the past few years, and I've been seeing more and more artists saying, hey, is it okay if I make this a black woman? Sure, great, do that. But it definitely helps to kind of have people with a strong creative vision to say, no, we really want this. We really want this more in the art. And we're getting close on time, but it does kind of lead me to one of the other last things I want to talk about, is that Exxalted is definitely one of the properties where a lot of the people now working creatively on it came from the community. You've already talked about how you've been involved with it, and really a lot of the talents in Exxalted has come from the community, and Exxalted has a very strong and passionate community. I think that's safe to say. Passionate is good.
It's a good word.
A good word, passionate. So, I mean, what is it like now that you've crossed the line, as it were, now that you're on the other side, looking back out at the community? What do you think about the Exxalted community now? Do you think it's better? Do you think that, do you feel differently about the community now that you're no longer, do you feel you're still a part of it? I mean, how has your relationship with the community changed now that you made that transition? It's
complicated. I mean, the first real transition was becoming a writer. Right. Because at that point, I guess I had a foot in both worlds, but I always felt that, I couldn't really share information about what I was working on because I didn't have authorization from the developer, and it wasn't up to me to make any decisions. Now I'm the developer. I can talk about what I want. That's true. So it's actually a lot easier. Rich has not come down on me yet. To be fair, he's pretty liberal about that stuff.
Yeah, so. Rich is pretty chill.
Yeah, and I came from a background of I can't say anything, so I tend to err on the side of keeping cards close to my chest. But I'm learning where to draw the line. I'm to more comfortably talk to the community, sharing information on our forums, on Discord. There's a whole lot of places where Exalted is discussed, and people are really excited, and they're still excited, close to 20 years after the game first came out, and it's amazing. I mean, I've been part of this for most of my adult life.
Oh yeah, there's a huge Exalted Discord. It
really?
got linked a bunch during the Dragon Blooded Kickstarter, so if you go back through some comments on some of that, you'd probably be able to find it. But there's a huge fan Discord, and I see a lot of our writers and devs in there talking fairly frequently when I hop in. They all get really excited when one of the devs shows up and starts talking. we have a special color coding. We are members of the celestial bureaucracy, according to the Discord.
Am I correct? I heard a rumor that you have a special title, Dixie, in Discord.
Oh my god! What they call me?
Or they called you something when you first walked in.
They just got really excited. It was weird. Like I said, it was like being a celebrity. I never knew what that would feel like until I popped into the Exalted General Discord one day and just started chatting, and they were all like, "Oh my god, is Dixie here?" And I was like, "I'm not even that important to the line. You should be more excited about Eric and Vance." But
we're old news.
Yeah, I guess. But yeah, no, it was really strange. Speaking of things that you can and can't talk about before we wrap up, which I know we're about to do. Do you want to give anybody a little taste of what we're planning for Exxxalted?
Can I talk about that?
I mean, you can talk about anything that was in the pitch, which has been approved.
Oh wow! Okay, yeah.
So if you want to let people know, there's a little teaser about what we're planning to do with it,
I mean, if you hate the fans, that's fine too.
Oh well.
Eddie.
Okay then. With that start. Exigence is going to be the most unusual splat book we've worked on. Of course, it's only going to be the third, but still, it's probably the most unusual splat book the line ever does, because it's not about an Exalt type, because Exigence are very much a catch-all, a grab bag. It's going to contain guidelines, not rules, not hard and fast rules, but a lot of guidelines, not the single page or 2 or 3 head and arms of the chosen for charms, but more like 50 pages of guidelines on how to design charms, how to design your own version of a limit track, and character generation, and all sorts of things that you need to put together your own Exigent. And then we're going to have 4 mini splats for 4 different Exigents that you could either play out of the box as that character or use that power set for a character of your own devising. 2 of them, I believe, are actually for Exigent types that there are more than one of. So you can, at least one of them is something you can have an entire group of this type of Exigent, while on the other hand you have Straw Maiden Genest, who is in the core book and is a singular individual who is Exalt of a Harvest God and is pretty cool.
Right.
And yes, and in the back, sorry, you were saying?
Go ahead.
She was agreeing with you.
Hooray! And in the back of the book, we're going to have an additional section on how to use the guidelines in Exigence to build new Exalted types that aren't even Exigence, just completely new things that you might want to do for your campaign, because making brand new weird things is sort of an Exalted tradition.
Right.
It's gonna have 3 different Exalt types that we were thinking of putting into canon, but decided that it was a little overstuffed. So they're optional canon. They're not going to be referenced in later material unless fans get super excited, but there will be enough material that you can use them in your own game and build them out into their own Exalt types.
Yeah, I love the idea of create your own, splat essentially. Because since Exigents are created from one specific, god, each one is created from one specific divine spark, as it were. That's super, super, super cool, because you can kind of think up whatever god of creation you want and then go, well, they needed a champion, so I'm that champion, and make your character around that, which I think is super neat for any role-playing game, really, is to be able to just kind of be, here's everything I ever wanted in a character. I'm going to make it. So, yeah.
Yeah, that is extremely interesting. I'm curious. I look forward to potentially that Kickstarter.
Yeah, right. I mean, obviously that one's a ways off. We've got some other stuff to do first, like I said earlier. But like I said, I just wanted to give people a little preview of what they can expect in the book.
Yeah, it's only 2 spots away. I mean, 2 Kickstarters away, and we even know what we'd want for stretch goals because there's so many other Exxxalted types that we just don't have room for in the book.
I love that you're already planning a Kickstarter that's like probably 2 years out, maybe. I don't know. I'm not going to promise anything. If I promise anything, Rich might get mad at me.
Right.
But you know,
yeah,
we're trying to think that is pretty far in the future, but that we are already working on. And I think that's a good example of how the Exxalted team works. Anyway, is that they're really good at planning very far in advance.
Or, as previously stated, we're insane.
Why not both?
Why not both?
Both work.
But yes. If that Kickstarter happens, I should not presume.
Yes. So if people want to ask you questions about when the extra Kickstarter is going to happen, how would they find you online?
There is a Exxalted forum on the Onyx Path website, and sticky to the top of the forum is a thread called Ask the Devs, which has been going on for over a year now, has a cajillion posts. That's a round number. And you can just...
Metric cajillion.
No, we still use Imperial. And if you have a question for us, just post it there, and we will try and answer it for you.
Do you want Twitter followers or anything, or do you want to keep that private?
I honestly have been too busy developing to keep track of Twitter.
Okay.
Vance has been much better about maintaining the social media presence.
Okay, so follow Robert Vance on Twitter.
There you go. And how do people find the Discord channel you mentioned?
I don't know how to tell people how to find Discord channels. If you go into some of the comments or the updates on the Dragon Blooded Kickstarter, I think on some of the last couple updates before we ended, it was linked. So that's
fair enough. I'll also dig up the links for the show notes too.
There we go. Yeah, look in the show notes if you want to find that. They're right there on your screen. Maybe if you're listening to this through your browser.
It will totally be in the show notes that totally exist right now.
There's a really loud car that just went by my house. That was cool.
Right. Cool. Well then, so thank you so much for coming out and hanging out with us, Eric. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. I had a great time.
Yeah, this is fun.
Talk to you later. And we're back. That was very, very cool. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I haven't, like I said, I've had meetings with both Eric and Robert Vance, but like I haven't done a deep dive kind of into their process. I don't know as much about them as people, so that was really, really cool to kind of get to know Eric a little bit better.
Oh, you two are back.
Yes.
I've just finished writing Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition.
All by yourself, on past hour.
Yeah, you know, it's an hour's work, isn't it? A new edition for a game as seminal as Vampire. I listened to the interview. I was listening in like some voyeur. And it was, a very good interview. In fact, I would say one of the best. The best interview
thank you.
You've done so far. And you know what? Really, I've never been a big Exalted player, big Exalted storyteller. It's never been my jam. But the thing that really got me about this interview is it's made me feel an awful lot of faith for the direction the game is now going in. Because I know you touched on it, and we won't linger on it, but there were certain directions the game took way back when. There was certainly certain faults in the last few years with the way Exalted was going too, and I've just got a lot more hope now. Eric does instill me with confidence. No pressure, Eric. But when you hear someone enthusiastic who knows the game well, who's happy to talk about it, and generally loves Exalted or any game they're working on, I think you can certainly have a lot more confidence that this edition's going to work out well. So I'm very much looking forward to the product that he's putting together with Robert.
Absolutely, and that's one of the reasons why I'm glad we got him on, because Exalted is, we've alluded to it, but it is kind of in a weird place. It's the non-modern day property we get from White Wolf. You know, it's like White Wolf's always like, oh, you have Chronicles, Darkness, World Darkness, and Exalted. So from a license perspective, it's kind of its own place. And then from a development perspective, you know, they have a very interesting and different process from the rest of what we do. Some of which is they're learning, and we're kind of finding ways to onboard them and make it work out. together, but I mean, they just have certain needs that other projects don't have. And then on top of that, the depth of knowledge they need to have, and the fact that, like Eric alluded to with the Lunar stuff, that there's sometimes some course shifting that needs to happen.
Right.
To update and modernize things. So there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of interesting places. So Exalted's always been kind of its own interesting place within Onyx Path, and even frankly with White Wolf. So it's really interesting to have someone who's so passionate, enthusiastic, and collaborative to come on board and help make sure that it's Exalted has a strong future ahead of it.
Sorry, Dixie. I was just going to say, it's very easy to forget how new to development both of these guys are.
Absolutely.
I mean, they were already doing it when I came on, so I keep forgetting that they're newer too.
I mean, well, obviously, I listened to Eric talk about his starts with games like Paranoia and the like, and working on the original Infernals book and so on. But developing is a whole different bag to writing, and I know it's going to sound really like I am waxing them up a little here, but the sheer dedication they're showing in communicating with the fans readily, the amount of work they are producing so regularly, it's wonderful to see.
Yeah, it's a really good team overall. They're very collaborative, like I said, in the Slack. Pardon me. They talk about ideas amongst themselves and with other people. It's all very like throw stuff at a wall, see what's happening. But also, like almost everybody that works on Exxalted is a fan of Exxalted. And you almost have to be, because there's so much lore.
Agreed.
Like it's almost impossible to come on as a brand new writer that's never heard of it and work on it.
Read these 14 books before you start. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, we are constantly giving people second edition stuff to reference that we're updating, all that kind of stuff. So it's really cool. But you've almost got to be super passionate about Exxalted to work on it, and they all are. It's also really interesting because the project management stuff, like Eric edits and does some technical writing and stuff, and Vance is a lawyer. So they are both good at, managing projects and doing business things and keeping a schedule, which I think is really helpful, honestly.
It's one of those things that often gets forgotten when... we found that, cards on the table, we found that when you sometimes promote writers to the role of developer, I guess promote is the wrong word, when you assign a writer to the role of developer...
Curse.
You curse them with that role. Well, we'll get there. The ability to manage a project, to manage people, workflow, all of that, I'm sure these are all words that all of you listening have heard of if you work in an office or anything like that. Is a tremendous boon to being able to do it, because if you've never had to direct people before, sometimes handle grievances, deal with people coming in late, or in our case turning work in late, all of that, it can really be quite overwhelming if on your first project, especially a project the size of, any Exxalted book.
Those books have more writers on them than most of our books do.
And that has certain benefits and disadvantages, having massive writing teams, and that's probably something we'll talk about in another podcast, the sort of perfect composition behind a book's construction. But for now, we should probably wrap up, shouldn't we, Eddie?
Absolutely. Although there is one bit of housekeeping that I would like to get fan input on, listener input on. Because it's always painful to banish one of our hosts to the abyss whenever we do one of these interviews. Painful when it happens to me, not so much when I do it to other people. But
I wouldn't know. I've never been banished.
No, that's true.
Right, exactly.
Dixie is the constant.
Yes, yes. But one thing we've been considering is that rather than having our lead in and this kind of wrap up post interview session, is just doing the whole interview as the entire episode. So we're going to try that for an episode or two, see how that goes. But we'd like to get everyone's feedback. Is that something you'd like to see more of? Do you want us to right into the interview and not spend time with us chattering? Or do you appreciate the lead in and our joking about who's going to be cut out? And also our kind of post-interview breakdown of what we thought about things. So we'd like to hear your thoughts, as always.
Yeah.
You can leave us comments on the Podbean threads. You can leave us comments through the forums. You can message us directly. In fact, how would they message us directly, Matthew?
Well, they can contact me on the Onyx Path forum as The Gentleman Gamer. I'm also on YouTube as The Gentleman Gamer, and I'm also on Twitter as Clack Click Bang. Before I pass over to you, I thought that your last bit of business was going to be wrestling related.
Oh!
So I'm very disappointed at this point. So I'm just going to ask you a very quick wrestling question, Eddie, and then I will ask Dixie about her social media information. How have you felt Johnny Gargano's character arc over the last 12 months has been going in NXT?
Oh my god. Oh, the Johnny Gargano Ciampa stuff has been frankly amazing. I do think it's going on a bit long now.
Oh.
I feel like it's about wrapping up, but they're starting to kind of do that. But when you are so hated that you can come out to no theme music, and your theme music is essentially the crowd chanting how much they hate you, that is an amazing level of bad guy.
Nuclear
so I do think
heat.
the Ciampa Gargano stuff is pretty good.
Okay, that's the wrestling part done. I'm glad we got it. Dixie, your social media?
Thanks. You can find me on pretty much every social media as Dixie Cyanide. That includes the Onyx Path forums, Twitter, etc. I'm going to quit spelling it out now because I'm pretty sure you all figured it out. Also, I want to say before I pass it back that we do still have a Kickstarter going for Geist the Sun Eater 2nd edition. It's a super cool Chronicles of Darkness game that didn't get enough love back in the day, in my opinion. So if you get a chance, go over to Kickstarter, check it out. There are links from the Onyx Path blog, and there'll probably be a link in the podcast notes as well. So, Eddie?
And everyone can find me at just about any social media website at EddyFate, EDDYFATE, or at my website, eddyfate.com. You can always talk to us on the Onyx Path website, theonyxpath.com, or our forums, theonyxpath.com. We also have a Facebook group. Just type in the Onyx Path, you'll probably find us. And again, I mean, we've been getting some great comments from you guys. We do appreciate the feedback. Everyone seems to be enjoying it so far, and so we're happy to make them as long as you enjoy them. And everyone has different kind of thoughts and perspectives on what the Pathcast is doing, so please let us know. We'll take it into consideration. And with all of that, just remember, many worlds, one Pathcast.